Yes, this show may go anyway.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
This is insane.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
Good morning.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Here we go again. One more time. Well, I wouldn't say one more time. A few more times, perhaps. We're still here, live. It's 4:15 a.m. My body tried to get me up around 1:30 this morning. That was ridiculously insane, you know? I mean, it was crazy.
This is insane.
But like on the thumbnail title card in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the man sleeping. So I just like kind of got into this relaxing, meditative state, I guess. For a moment, I had some kind of bizarre dream. So I must have dozed by close to 3 o'clock. I got out of bed. Now I'm drinking bulletproof coffee with Irish grass-fed butter, cat butter from grass-fed cows, put it that way. And I guess I'm all prepped out with my polo hat and my collared shirt. For no reason whatsoever, just like this show has nothing to do with coffee other than the fact of me mentioning that I'm drinking bulletproof coffee. We're supposed to get a lot of rain. The East Coast is supposed to get, be like storm central, what I'm hearing. I mean, the south, it's working its way up from the south to the, to the north. But it'll be a 100% chance of rain in the mid-Atlantic states today. 55 degrees for the high. That's a lot, That means the southern states, you're going to be pretty much really warm today as well. But the further north you go, the more crazy it gets. And there's going to be a lot of wind later in the coming, as the day progresses, the evening into tomorrow. In fact, off the East Coast, northeast coast, they're talking about hurricane force winds. So if you're in certain coastal areas, even in this area, we'll be getting like what would be considered low, on the low end of tropical storm winds, which is just great for my roof because, that's how this whole thing began. See, part of this magnetic field and this cycle we're going through, because CO2 has nothing to do with the wind blowing. Trust me on that one. All right? It may have to do with some things, but it doesn't have one thing for sure. It doesn't have anything to do with. I don't care who you are, what your claim to fame in the scientific community is. But, on a roof that should have lasted at least another 5-7 years or so, a couple of key tiles were blown off when we had like near hurricane force winds here in the mid-Atlantic states. Inland. If I were to drive to the shore, it would take me hours. You understand? I'm inland. In fact, I'm surrounded by the Appalachian Mountains. Should be protected. Like, WTF, as they say, right? So, this show has nothing to do with coffee for sure. Well, what the heck are you going to talk about? Wake up and smell the coffee is the title of the show, and there's some chat in there I put in this morning. This is not an endorsement for drinking coffee or any caffeinated beverages whatsoever. That said, you are free to do whatever you like. Freedom is a state of mind. And just keep that in mind. Mind over matter, I should say.
Your papers, please.
Yes, don't forget that. Don't forget. You got to have your papers.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
Well, I'm up early. Little slight cough. I have no idea. This is definitely going to be a free flow of consciousness. It's going to be pure
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
pure vlog. If you want to join me here and keep me company, that's fine. If you would rather not keep me company, that's okay too. Right? I mean, this show is just a show. This is a guy talking about stuff. Unlike yesterday's show, which I think there's a lot you could take away from it, and a hop, skip, and a jump over it, the happiness show. I mean, every now and then I do have, then I was inspired, now I'm sad and tired. You know where that's from? Take this away from me. He can sing at 4:21 a.m. and actually have it hold down a note, key, or whatever the heck. I don't know. Did laundry yesterday. Trimmed my apple tree, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to get apples this year or not. It's hard to say. But the trimming was good. Now, if these gusty winds don't crack it and blow it over, because I had it like staked to a tree, to a post. But I thought it was time to take that off, and then of course I come in and then I hear about this thing. But now that's I'm not going to restake it up. I'll just keep my fingers crossed that the wind. I mean, there's no leaves on it, so the wind should blow through it, right? Right. Hopefully. Unless it gets really crazy out there. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm at a really strange point in my life. I don't know if my neck's a little sore from just laying around in bed. The cat was crawling all over me. He comes down, nibbled on a couple of little cat treats, and then went back upstairs. I have no idea what his fear or his dislike for the downstairs is. He used to spend most of his days here, like his day. I mean, there's a futon, to the left of me, stage right for you. And he would be like, normally he would just be sleeping there through the whole show. I don't know what happened. It's weird. I can't figure it out. But he's still the same old cat. He purrs away, wants his treats. I mean, he hangs in his sunspot upstairs when it's a sunny day. Today's not going to be a sunny day. But otherwise, he'll just sit on a chair then. It's like he won't come down here. It's like half the house he's not dealing with. Tonight, later on this afternoon, well, I hope the rain starts this afternoon. And the reason I hope that it does, not that I want it to rain at all, but it's a 100% chance, is that at least I will be able to see where the leaks are coming in and properly position the various, collection bins under those spots. These are the things you have to do when you have a leaky roof, right? And as far as that guy on that thing, not Mr. Coffee Nerves, if you can see that. I could blow this up a little bit in case you're looking on a small device, which I don't recommend, but in case you are. Basically what's happening here is, this woman, she's dead on her feet, and she never suspects me of stealing her sleep. Mr. Coffee Nerves. But this guy on the other side is like, I drink all the coffee I want, and I get the sleep I need. And it's like, not true. I can't do that, I mean, I'm one of those people that, if I drink caffeinated, I don't drink caffeinated drinks. I used to drink sodas in the morning and sometimes during the day. But if I were to drink coffee or a caffeinated drink like after even noon, that's why this stuff doesn't really bother me, because it's so early. It's freaking night for most people. In the wee hours of the morning. I don't look like I'm necessarily an ill person, right? That's my latest thing. It's like, my teeth are clean, my gums are clean, my eyes are white. I'm not jaundiced, right? I was trimming a tree yesterday. The day before, I walked a mile or two to the grocery store and hauled up bags of stuff. I get proper sleep, and like I said yesterday, I eat a healthy diet that's probably healthier than, I would say, 90+% of the people in the world. Literally, in the world. So it's like, I don't know. The big question is, does vitamin A, D, E, and K that are fat soluble vitamins that, pardon the expression, it's somehow bile create and the liver, gallbladder, blah, 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 somehow in the small intestine extract somehow these fat soluble vitamins out. But I think if I were vitamin deficient in those areas, it would show. And I eat foods that contain all of those vitamins. I take a vitamin D supplement in the wintertime, but in the summertime, I'm like out there, baking. And for some reason, how did that get knocked down? Okay. Got to keep track of this stuff all the time. My Tony Caravan Live thing seems off a little. I guess I got to shrink this down. But as I said, or as she says,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And he takes a sip of coffee. For those podcast listeners out there, in podcasting land, I asked my Echo Dot to play a Tony Caravan podcast, and she didn't know what the heck I was talking about. This whole podcasting thing, it's like I should have gotten into it a couple of years ago. I was helping people like 10, 12 years ago. I was helping people do that with RSS feeds and setting them up and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's like I just got sidetracked living life, right? Side of my hat. It's a weird reflection. But at this point, I'm almost at the point of like, I don't know. I'm losing interest, right? In things. It's like, it's overkill. It's why I stopped making music. See, the first thing, in yesterday's discussion, I was, it was a rather upbeat thing. And I was actually thinking that I'm going to download it so I can upload it to like 3Speak later today, and to, it'll automatically appear on Rumble. So it's on Rumble. Yesterday's should be on Rumble today already. But I was going to, since I'm downloading it to put it on this other place, I was going to take the last 15 minutes of yesterday's show, which I forget how long exactly it ran, but, it was a long one, fairly long, and under 2 hours, and put that up as a clip, because it's a really upbeat idea about positivity versus negativity and that kind of thing. And it was the duality of mankind, whatever, womankind, if I must. And but the thought was, things that were discussed there also were the concept of depression was in there at one point somewhere. I don't know if it was in that last clip or not, but that doesn't matter. The reason I'm bringing that up, in this rambling, babble, is, the first thing someone would say is, you say you lost interest in doing things. You would say, well, it sounds to me like you're depressed, right? It's like, I don't know, guys. I mean, am I depressed?
Really funny. Really funny.
No, not really. I'm not depressed. That's not it. It's like when I was trying to start to say this, it's like the 50 songs, my 50 beat poetry tracks, that I recommend you go to YouTube and do a search, Tony Caravan's beat poetry tracks, and you'll find 50 videos there. Like I always say, they're not all great, but they span from reggae to rock to alt rock, dance, synth, experimental, to spoken word with the bass. Boom, 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 boom. Who knows? I may play one or two of them for you today if I have to take a break during the show. It's a possibility. I was thinking about it. But I'll keep the show alive. But no, I just, I got in this mode of writing, of writing songs, these beat poetry tunes, and, pulling out the git fiddle, right? See if I can do this without causing too much damage. I know this thing is completely out of tune. Whoa. That's out of tune. Should I tune it? So here. I should have done this before. I got to back up a little bit. You probably can't hear the tuning, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to share this mic. I really need two mics to do this, as we know from before, but when I don't want this mic, ouch! When I don't want this mic to move, it's like piece of cake. It's sliding all over the place. When I want it to move, I've got to grab like a rag or something to loosen it. Like, what's going on? It's like my drain. The other day, the heck with it. I mean, it literally won't move. It's like the other day I had it the plunger to my kitchen drain. And I cleared it, and it was working fine. If you can't hear this, everything is like somehow slipped almost a key lower, or in other words, an E was a D. Well, now we're kind of close. I'm just trying to come up with something here. This is just something simple. I could just, come up with something new. And I'll try to, Well, I can't. I don't know. You should be able to hear this guitar. You should be able to. I hope you can. That's not going to work. Didn't trim the fingernails enough for this, really. Yeah, see, that's the problem. Maybe I just won't do that extra thing. Yeah, we'll just keep it simple. You in the studio back there. We'll add a second guitar later. It's 4:36 a.m. on a Thursday morning in February. And what can I say, you know? I don't even know if you can hear the guitar. But I get tired of writing these songs. And I don't know if it was really being tired. Or I just moved on. Some people out there call it depression. But that makes no logical sense when you hear the tunes. Four 37 a.m. February 17th, 2022. If you can't hear this guitar, I pity you. I also wrote 10 books, but kind of decided that I was done. Does that mean depression? Or did I just reach the limit? After doing 365 shows last year, now I'm bored with these shows. There's nobody listening now. As I broadcast this show live to 2 billion active users on YouTube. So you tell me, what is right, what is wrong? 4:39 a.m. February 17th. The calendar year 22 with 2 zeros before it. Are you bored? Are you depressed? Or is it just the way that things go? I have no idea. I have no idea if you heard any of that. I know you heard the voice, but I have no idea if you heard the guitar. But anyway, I almost had the Johnny Cash voice coming in there for a while, right? See what I mean? This microphone. It's weird. It's like life is becoming a dream state. Almost. I feel like this should stay when I tighten it, but it doesn't want to. There's no reason for it not to do that. Right? This is what I'm saying. It's as if physical reality has been changing for me lately. As he drinks a cup of coffee. And no, that song was not perfect, and it was just craziness because I was like in a very odd position trying to, strum on a guitar and just make up something as I was going along. So give me a frickin' break. Don't be so damn critical. I thought in general it had its moments. And if we were in the studio, we would have by probably the second or third take had it figured out. You know? Who knows? Maybe I've added a keyboard or something and some other stuff. It's kind of interesting. But I was in that mode is what I'm trying to say, and...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I was in that mode for a couple of years, and I was writing songs. I mean, that was not... But that's the inspiration would be something along those lines. You just come up with a little ditty, and then you write down some lyrics, and then start, open up the multi-track and decide what instruments you're going to use, whether it's going to be acoustic, electric, both. Maybe add keyboards, who knows, a backing vocal, do whatever I want. But I get tired of it. Or basically exhausted it. Or something. I don't know how to explain it. It's just suddenly, there was like a couple of like false stops. And so I thought, okay, this is going to be my last song. I think I'm done it. I think I did the beat poetry thing out. And then I wrote a couple of those, tracks like these kinds of things. Because I'd realized I had... And so I did a few traditional beat poetry tracks just to finish it off. Because that was, something I realized that's kind of even though I refer to my music as, like, you can see on the, if you can see the back where it says 21st century beat poet. And even though my stuff, defied the laws of beat poetry, because, the music would be things like this. Or weird stuff like that. Or that's a far cry from something like this. Or definitely this. Okay, so then I was done, and then somehow I got inspired to write this tune. And then, of course, Virtual Cage, which is, I think, is one of my better tunes, was one of the last songs I wrote. That sounds like real super bassy in my ears, but I don't know how that would come over, how that's coming out over there. But that's a really good tune. Let's just like play it somewhere in the middle.
Replies and requests.
Yeah, it's hard to sit. It's just kind of noisy in my headphones, so I don't want to like break yours. But anyway, so that was that. And you're saying, what's the purpose of the show? Well, there is no necessarily a purpose of the show, but I mean, there's just kind of purpose of the show is sharing this concept with you because maybe this will help you if you're in a situation, similar situation. It's like in the back there, you could barely see if you look by the guy, the 3D man with the red and green 3D glasses, lit up head. And next to him is the morning show mug. There goes the coal trucks. But, I stopped calling it the morning show there for a while. And then it's like, as you can see in the bottom of the screen, it's Tony Caravan Live Morning Vlog. You go through changes. It's these creative things you do. But it's no different with the books and stuff like that. I still haven't decided I won't write another book. And I can't say with absolute certainty that I won't pick up the guitar and basically write another song. And just like I'm still doing these shows, but they're almost out of rote. That said, some of the best shows have come up within the past several weeks. At least once or twice, once a week, at least, there's been a classic show. And that's hard to say for, there are podcasts that some people say that was a classic podcast. But yeah. They're not all good because it's one guy for the most part. I had Trey on. That was a good show when I had somebody on the phone that time. I've had Tattoo on. That was pretty good, And, but also it's just the idea of, it's amazing to have, just in this format to have 400 of shows, kind of like 400 podcasts. It's something around that number, consecutive. More than that. It's definitely over 500. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I could be approaching 600 plus videos. I really don't know. If you count my audio stuff and the things I was doing in the 90s, we could be over 1,000. So, I don't know if you want to call it a depression because I say the thrill is gone. Feel free. Like I say, your freedom's a state of mind, and you're free to do whatever you want to do. But I don't necessarily have a next thing that I could think of offhand that I'm ready to move into, apart from like the weather changing and getting back into gardening. This health thing, I'm kind of like, just like I'm saying, screw it. That's my attitude on this. It's like the forces of nature and the forces of the cosmos, and all of you people out there, the good, feel the good, send me those good vibes, send me your prayers, right? But you don't have to send me your money. None of these things were ever about money. And I never made money on any of these things. That's the thing. So that never really was the motivation. Not for the books, not for the music, not for the webcasts, podcasts, whatever you want to call them. Blogs. Even my websites. I've always had the things on there, support the website. I always say buy the books, listen to the music and stuff like that. But I mean, that's how you get the book, It's not like I have the money to send out free books to people or stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I do have a server, and I've been having problems with the company that I've been hosting my server with for over 20 some years, that I've had an arrangement with for over 20 some years, has changed hands a couple of times. And most recently, a big major name bought them out. I don't know why. Right? But somehow in that transition, like apparently I wasn't receiving the email from it associated with one of the accounts I have on there. And I have archives on that server of things I've done over 25 some years. Right? But I also have a lot of that stuff backed up, probably most of it backed up here. Because in other words, I created everything on my computers and then uploaded it. Now, there would have been things that I might have made changes direct, online, and I worked with some software programs that no longer exist. Like Adobe discontinued the program Muse, right? And I used to do a lot of programs in Clara's homepage. But Clara's homepage, won't, is so old that the PNG file doesn't show up. On, if you're, I don't know. So there's all kinds of things like that. So there will be losses. Right? But I'm thinking of just canceling the thing. It's a decision I have to make within the next 2 months. In other words, it'll be the end of that email. Anybody tries to email me at that address, it'll be like, go nowhere. And anyone that tries to go to any of these sites that I have, and man, do I have sites. At one point I had well over 100 some websites, domain names, and websites associated with them. And even though I've got rid of the domain names over the years, I've only kept a handful, really. Sorry about that. My nose is burning. A sneeze or something was coming on. That I've kept a handful of them, and the actual URL, not the domain name, but the full URL that the domain name would have pointed to or whatever, still exists in many cases. So there's websites out there that people have no idea about. I mean, you could find them accidentally, and I guess through weird searches, people who do deep search and stuff like that for something or something. But I'm thinking of closing down that whole server, and that's that. That's end of story, end of an era. So I'm definitely not diving into the internet thing. And I was going to be it's like this whole podcasting thing. I don't know, So I don't know. Maybe you've gotten into this, been in this position, and, and I'm just having a discussion here, so you could think of, just a little bit of a mental exercise, thought-provoking for both of us, working something out. That's kind of what I really use these things for to begin with. I watch the playbacks, all right? Listen to the playbacks, watch them. And so I work out the ideas that are discussed and worked out on here, even though, it's like I'm talking to someone. And, and then sometimes things make sense. And that's what I'm attempting to do right now. So I have no idea where this show's going. I have no idea. I'm trying to figure this out. Let's see, and like I say, we'll see if we can figure out together. But the together is you and me, but the you is me for all practical purposes, because this show right now there are 0 viewers. In fact, probably if there's anything going on, is I probably got one of those. No, I didn't even get one of those fake weird things. Now, along that line, we're going to keep this idea going, because I think a lot of different people, I think people lose interest in things and are puzzled and confused. And I think sometimes the concept of whether, it could be confused with depression, it could be depression, So let's work all this thing out. Now, simultaneous to this, right, or parallel, whatever you want to call it. Let me get a sip of coffee. Coffee tastes pretty good today. I'm pouring some more in. Here's the carafe, which I've just held up to the screen if you're listening to this audio only somehow. Podcasting index. Of course, on YouTube, any YouTube video is a podcast technically, and you can listen to it. Obviously, you just play it, put your earbuds in, and go on your walk or whatever you do. But, and I don't do a lot of visuals lately, and the title card or the thumbnails, they call it, exists. And if I do convert some of these classics to just pure audio podcasts, I will, these title cards, as I call them, will be, the title cards for the podcast. But like I was saying, parallel to this, juxtaposed with what I'm talking about, moving on, so to speak, is that in the background you have this, and I'm not going to get into politics. I'm just going to I'm just mentioning this. We're not going to talk about it. Is this idea, this build up to war, over in Europe, the insane warmongering going on, which is, I predicted months ago, the military industrial complex, their shareholders needed to sell weapons, so they had to have a war. When Afghanistan ended and the Middle East ended, that cut off their sales. Right? I mean, they sell weapons. That's their job. They manufacture and sell weapons of war. And I said on one show, could you imagine if they retooled those weapons of war into things that would improve the quality of life for human beings? But I think we're so far beyond that point, and nobody has the will to do that. And the type of people, the institutional mentality that is taken over the military industrial complex is such that sort of paradigm shift is not even something conceivable. All right. It's not even, it's nowhere. It's nowhere in their mind. Right. Someone brought it up, they would probably be taken out back and shot. Literally. Right. Because, these people do kill, for a living. They make weapons of war, and if you get in their way, you're eliminated. So you got that stuff going on, because I don't watch the news anymore, but, YouTube is still chock full of people talking about that. And then you've got the truckers in Canada and this Trudeau guy who was taken over as a dictator. And I saw someone, I think it was Dave Rubin. It was Dave Rubin, had a clip of Trudeau like in some kind of town hall meeting setting from years ago, several years ago, not that long ago, but I mean a while back. And he was saying that the country he admired the most was China because they were a dictatorship. And so if the government wanted to get something done, it was very easy because they could just force the people to do it. And of course, he just declared like martial law, the equivalent of martial law. So he's now the dictator. Now Canada is now ruled by a dictator. Okay. I said I wasn't going to get into politics, and I'm not. I'm not like going to get into that. I'm just saying, I'm reporting what is, reality, what's out there. And then in this country, I have a whole show about it where I talked about runaway inflation, where inflation is actually, I saw a little spin on my thing. So it's like YouTube's like thinking of like, it's pretty funny. You don't know how this, like, people don't understand how this world works. But one of my broadcasts was about inflation and how inflation is up to 25 to 30 plus %. And certain items are 50% to 100%. In other words, the price of certain things has doubled. And yet the government tells you inflation may be 6 or 7%, which is still would be by traditional even government reporting standards is high, right? So you got that going. And then you had, the solar outburst, a very small CME last week that took out like 40 of Elon Musk's Starlink satellites. And which I said in the show that, we have a weakened magnetic field, blah, blah, blah. And, we're entering this cycle, and this is crazy time. And that's just a few things. And then you still have, this like,
your papers, please.
They're like doubling down on that in the background. So, this is insane. It's crazy.
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare. It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
So all that stuff's going on in the background. I'm not paying attention to it, but I'm exposed to it. And because you can't help it. Because if you're a YouTuber, like even if when I turn on to watch this show, if it, I have to find my show. I go to my subscriptions or I could go to my thing, and I'd have to do that half the time. Sometimes it's up there because I go upstairs right after the show, and it's actually on my recommended list because I watch it every day. But sometimes it's not, probably because of the subject matter. They're even hiding it from me, which is insane. But so I can't help but see these other title cards, as I call them, thumbnails, as you may call them, they call them. And they clearly are all about the aforementioned things and more. Ridiculous, insane things. It's like the John Lennon line I've quoted many times, this, or paraphrased, this world, this country, but this world is is run by insane people for insane reasons, right? And that's all over the place. And instead of the new media, the so-called, social media independence or whatever, instead of them doing something like this, talking about it from an absurdist point of view, they're like covering it and criticizing it, and they're bringing in the names of these various media and showing clips and tweets and web pages by these other companies, and that's the basis for their show's content. It's ridiculous. Even some of the biggest names, on social media, YouTube, Rumble, all of them. Their shows are based on their reading someone else's article or content and then, criticizing it line by line, so to speak, and having, if they're the one, a lot of these shows have these other people on with them, and then getting various, people commenting on that. And that's why nothing ever got done. Because it's just talk. Do you see? And they don't see that. And they don't want to see that because they're making a living at it. This is the thing. They're making a good living at it. They're living better than they ever expected to live. Many of these people, I would say most. They never expected they would be making this kind of money just talking about somebody else's article or criticizing a political figure, right? And suddenly they have this lifestyle, right? And they're not afraid to tell you that they bought this property and are expanding and have this, and you see all their new technical equipment, and hey, we're putting in a new studio, right? We're buying more land. We're doing this. We're doing that. Right? And so that's like disheartening in one regard, but it's also just takes it's an expression I use often. It takes the wind out of your sails. Because you look at your own, you see that like the moment they're up and doing a broadcast, they're instantly in the double digits, thousands, but when it's all said and done, that they're in the hundreds of thousands of views, maybe even, and some of their shows break 1 million, and they've done nothing but criticized something that that everybody across the board is criticizing at the same time, or they're all talking about the exact same thing. And they have no idea that ignoring a thing makes a thing disappear. It really does. It really does. In other words, they are empowering these people. The wrong people, I should say. So, and it gets harder and harder to find content. And so these people, I call them the YouTube millionaires. But, they're not all millionaires. Some are making, some are probably just making, high double-digit thousands. Some are making 6 figures, But there's some making, 7 figures. But, more power to them and all that, and that's their world, and everybody's caught up and mesmerized by it, like I got talking about the Black Mirror type of thing. I mean, it's like it's taken over society. And so being an outlier here, somebody on the, outside looking in, seeing what's going on, you just... Every now and then I get a motivation to focus on a point, and create a thing. But I see these more as as performance pieces is the best way to say it. I mean, it's not like I could say an art piece, because it's not, in that regard, but it's like a performance piece. It's like my music and my books. I mean, in other words, I see them more in the art category, than in the, whatever, media category or publishing category or even music category. You see? It's like my beat poetry is more on the art side, right? My books are more on the art side. They're experimental. They're weird. These shows are different, right? You don't see shows like this. You don't see people talking like this. It's an agenda. Now, that's not to say that I haven't done shows where I've gotten onto a rant or criticized something and got into it and popped up some things and said, look at the absurdity of it. I have, and actually I regret those shows, even though I was probably the first person to point out something and all of that. It's like that idea. I regret doing it, but I'm a flawed human being. So, I'm forgiven. I forgive myself for it. All right. I forgive myself for being so idiotic. Right. And so that's where I am. So, so here I am in this position now. Probably have done more videos, collectively between music, books, videos, audio, podcasts, I don't even talk about all the issues of magazines that I've published. Thousands. And then graphic design and websites I designed over the years for people and things, and other things. And like people, odd requests, and then gardening and growing and just making things and innovating. Idea man type of thing, stuff. And then work I've done for clients when I was, in business, problem solving and doing that kind of stuff. And so you get to a point where it's like, you start to run out, of avenues to explore, to innovate, to create in, And behind, the thing about the creative drive is you have to be driven. There has to be a purpose. I often say on this show, not often, but several times I've said it. It's like, I want to exercise, right? We have to exercise. We all need to exercise to keep our body. It's part of human life, and part of one of the things that I dislike the most. That was another thing that, like I say, when they used to put up those charts and they would say, wash your hands, social distance, and all that stuff. They never said things like blow your nose, exercise, and eat these kinds of foods. Because the thing was that if there was a chart that just said if you go out, blow your nose, exercise, and eat the following diet, you probably would be healthier, But they don't want us to be healthy. And I've had shows on that, right? That when I showed you the food, talked about the food, processed foods and the additives and the things in them and all that stuff. No, it's not as if the goal. See, the government, the powers that be, the corporatocracy, the technocracy, whatever you want to call it, I call it the corporatocracy, and, and I keep saying that, that the media and politicians are marionettes to that corporatocracy. And at the same time, I always say that it's all hypocrisy for profit, okay, because it's all pretense. But they want to be in charge of your life. That's clear. Every day they tell you what you can and cannot do, right? They love it. You know, they're dictators. They're just authoritarians. They're created, or if they not have already successfully created, a totalitarian state. It just hasn't trickled down to every little neighborhood yet because the U.S. is really big. And we have 330 million people, and it's when we're spread out all over a big country. And that really bothers them, and they're working real hard to figure out how they could get into every nook and cranny so they can get access to us all, right? Control us all, right? Because they're control freaks. They're megalomaniacs. They're narcissistic sociopaths and psychopaths. I mean, that's clear. And so they don't have our best interest in mind. Because if they did, they wouldn't be acting like that. They wouldn't be on these power trips. It wouldn't be hypocrisy for profit. You see, they wouldn't be pulling the strings. There wouldn't be propaganda. There wouldn't be lies, right? Politics wouldn't be a team sport. You know, red team, blue team, and all this hatred. And social media wouldn't be so, evil, right? You know, it would be a platform of communities and discussions and, all that sort of stuff, right? That's not the way it is for the most part. Like I say, it's a generalization. It's like everything is wrong. It's a generalization. I have to say that all the time because people just don't seem to have the wherewithal to grasp things, So how does that apply to what I started talking about? Well, it's directly applies. So you do these things, and we've seemed to have already crossed a threshold to where no one cares. And again, I'm generalizing. It's not like no one cares. There are plenty of people out there that see things the way I see things. I'm not the only one that sees the absurdity in what's happening, right? I'm not the only one that's saying, this is insane. That's for sure. But for the most part, everywhere you look, that seems to be, and those who go along with that hypocrisy and, seem to are the ones who are rewarded. So I'm sure there's many people out there that feel they sold their soul to the devil, so to speak. But they're trying to justify to themselves, whatever they do, who knows how they justify that. They have to live with themselves. And there will come a time in their life where they'll have to confront that. And that's not for me to judge or say, I'm just pointing out these things. So what's the purpose, of reporting these things, talking about these things anymore? It's even encroached on the entertainment business. These shows. It's like I've heard movies. A movie I watched yesterday. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I've gone back to try to find older movies that I never watched before or forgot, but I know I never watched it. Is Lawnmower Man. That's what I watched which is interesting because it's, it's about like virtual reality and this warning, but this is before the 21st century that movie goes back. And it's interesting the stuff they said, and it's almost as if these guys today are taking stuff from the playbook of these old sci-fi movies or whatever. But it's like, yeah, that's what I end up doing to pass the time. Because some of this current stuff is just so filled with like things they think they have to do or maybe have to do in order to get distribution or get it produced, get somebody to back it financially or whatever, that it's like, where's the story? The story is like the smallest part of it. Everything's filled with some kind of other, some ideological thing, whatever. Or these remakes, let's like they say, let's reimagine. All reimagine means is let's like change the character to fit some, some new, something more acceptable to today's society. It's like a movie's a movie. It doesn't matter. There's supposed to be suspension of disbelief and all that stuff. Remakes and reimaginings. Oh, man. So I could see why a lot of the writing on a lot of shows goes down too, because I could see the writers, because I used to know a lot of writers when I was out in LA and in New York in workshops. I took a script in a workshop and stuff. I knew writers. And, because writers see things, because that's the nature of the beast, because an average person walks through life. A writer's somebody who's observing things, and that's the detail you see in these stories, movies, TV shows, or whatever. A writer is observant, So writers are in touch with stuff. And writers are also in touch with stuff enough that if they need the money in the job, they're clued in enough on what they have to put in order to get that script sold or to stay on the series, right? But I also see that a lot of the shows, the writing has gone downhill, and it's because they've lost a lot of writers have just basically given up. And I'm sure it's like early retirement. It's like me. If there are things I could have continued to do and continued to get offers to do, and I just decided to say, no, I'm done, man. I'm not going to compromise my morals, ethics, who I am for the sake of money. Things, material things, you can't take them with you. Here today, gone tomorrow. When you die, people are just going to sort through your stuff and take it, sell it, and throw the rest away, right? It's a really ridiculous way of looking at things, but it's the truth, right? So you live your life, and so ultimately the idea is to just become as minimal as possible. And boy, do I have a long way to go for that, because this place is just filled with junk. But I'm almost moving to that idea of just getting rid of things. I mean, I have been tempted to chronicle it, like maybe I could set up a tripod high as I go through these throwaway various issues of magazines I've done, cover designs and stuff. As I'm putting them in a garbage can, I could show these one last time. These covers will see, the so-called light of day, and will be, in some video. Right? It's a concept. It's an idea. I don't know if there'd be an interest in it. It might inspire some graphic designer or some artist or somebody else publishing. But then again, magazines are a thing, a thing of the past for the most part. I mean, they're still there, but they're just not they're just not the thing, that they were. And I saw that writing on the wall, and that's why I ended my publishing career, because it was getting to that point where the advertisers just weren't getting it. Even though at the time it was still popular, I knew that people were reading it, and I had readership, and the ads were working and would have worked for but the companies didn't understand it, because they all were thinking, we need a Facebook, get our business on. We don't need to advertise. We have a Facebook page, right? And then that very same business, and I've watched dozens of them do it, who've said that kind of thing to me, they went out of business. Literally, I'm serious. I'm not joking. They literally went out of business, like within a year or a year later. But, because they didn't understand the, marketing. They didn't understand the approach, what was going on. Certain things work. Certain things are time proven. And in certain industries, there are certain ways of reaching people, such as point of purchase. And particularly in the dining and entertainment thing, the idea that you could have an ad I was in all the restaurants and bars, with these display racks. And so the idea that you as another restaurant could be in your competitor's business is, and because the people who were there were already people who you already knew they were people who spent money on food and drink. So that's a captive audience. It's your prime demographic, and it's even your competitors. You just can't, like I said, you can buy it. You buy an ad. Now, Facebook page is just out there in the ether, and you have to hope that out of all of, that people find it, blah, 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 blah. These places went out of business. But Facebook was free. They didn't want to spend they didn't want to spend a couple $100, But there were a lot of businesses that would have still been in business and would have been booming if they would have listened to me. I was an ad man. I knew about that stuff. I ran an agency before I was in the publishing business. I was publishing before I was in the agency business. I was publishing before I was in the radio business. I mean, I knew all that stuff. The entertainment, that whole thing was my world. That was my wheelhouse, as people say. But the point is, I got out of that too. And I think that's what I'm trying to get, the point I'm trying to get across here. And sometimes you have to know when to get out of something. And even though you have this itchy feeling and you're thinking, I put all this, see, here's I'm being honest with you, because I this is an idea where I'm talking to myself, but I'm talking to you or someone similar to me that may discover this. All right. But it's this idea of you might resist doing it or prolong doing something because you say, well, I invested so much time in it. Right? Or in my case, I've said this a couple occasions, I have this studio and this equipment and these capabilities. Right? So to just flip the switch and turn it off, and it's not saleable even. It's not like I can make a profit on it because, first of all, this equipment, computing equipment, all this kind of equipment, audio equipment is outdated. I mean, only to a person who knows how to hook all these things up. So they'll just so they wouldn't know, they couldn't understand this thing. I would have to train somebody on how I set up this unbelievable broadcast network. It is, like I said, the strangest thing about this setup is that I'm actually set up that if like the fit hit the shan, I can broadcast, And if people have battery operated radios or things like that, or those things that I talk about buying, the solar crank radios and stuff like that, or people have power backup that they could turn on a television. I have the ability to broadcast audio and video. I could broadcast on AM, FM, and television band. And so I could be the guy, And that's one of my things is I may just like power down, and when the fit hits the shan, boom, and I'll be the guy broadcasting, the end of the world, right? This is the last voice you will ever hear. Mine. This is the last face you will ever see. Here's what happened, right? The sun is, while I broadcast this, the sun has baked the other side of the planet. Within 12 hours, all life around you will be extinguished. So in the meantime, I'm going to play this golden oldie from Hey, you got to go out. Go out with a bang, right? And even though I know this sounds ridiculous, but it is all over. You do know that, right? So I've got that in the back of my head. And I've done shows on that, and it's more, it is primarily the sun that's going to bring this whole thing to an end sometime within the next decade or two, or tomorrow. That's the thing, but we're at that time. I watched some guy yesterday who, a big name, I'm not going to mention the name, but a really big name, who was trying to explain, who was like suddenly grasping this concept that there's a problem with the sun and the magnetic field and, the shifting of poles and stuff like that, migration of the southern and northern, magnetic poles. And the thing was, he was way off. He just didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't know what he was talking about. And if he would have done a simple search, he could have had a guy like Ben Davidson on from suspiciousobservers.org as a guest, and who could have explained the whole thing. But he wouldn't dare do that because and he was trying to pretend like he knew about this and he was studying things for 6 years and stuff. But he didn't. It was like half. It was pitiful what he was saying and the little time that he spent on it. See, now this thing is like losing, flopping all over the place. I'm going to take the plunger to my kitchen sink again. Well, why would it suddenly do that? I don't get it. It was clear yesterday. I didn't, I have a screen over it. I mean, it's like nothing was put down it. So how did it clog? It's weird. It's annoying. So, yeah, that's where my head's at. So it's like, in one regard, you can, these people who are making a living and a comfortable living, and they're just doing this, and I guess they're just riding out till the end of the world, so to speak, is what they're doing. In other words, they know the empire's falling. They know that there's runaway inflation. They know that the U.S. this is the former U.S. They know Western civilization is fallen, right? It's obvious to them. They're intelligent people. Let's face the facts. I don't have to name the names. I mean, how blind can, a person be? All right? Some of these individuals have moved to various places and stuff like that. The last holdouts, so to speak. And so the writing's on the wall, and so they're just milking it And I guess they're creating their little compounds. That's what they are, really. You know? And so they have their solar panels and their backup power generators. And, of course, the Second Amendment. They've got their guns and stuff. What a lot of good that's going to do against armies, right? Individuals, you know. But, you know, let them believe or try and do whatever they want to. And, you know, but they've abandoned their immortal souls, put it that way. In other words, you know, and they've abandoned all of us, and mainly you. Because, I mean, like I say, I've got my act semi together, you know. I don't really, you know. But, I mean, it's tragic to see how they've abandoned the very people that they've been misleading and lying to for so long. And it really is that hypocrisy. I'm not even going to bring up the graphic anymore. The hypocrisy for profit. They sold out. But in their minds, maybe some of them are thinking, well, we're bringing this out so there'll be change in any elections. And it's like, how many elections do you have to you know, to realize that things get worse every year, no matter who's in office? In other words, we've been on a downward spiral, a downward trajectory for decades and decades and decades. But they don't see that. You know, it's like when I used to say, don't you understand the way elections go? It's Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, for the most part. You know, every now and then there's like, you know, somebody's in there, you know, does double, you know, gets an extra term or something. But generally speaking, you know, the tides, you know, it just keeps changing. It, you know, everything's just, it switches back and forth and all that. So I don't know. You know, if there's mass insanity going on out there, why sit here and talk to, you know, like I said, I've said once before, you know, this is insane. Why argue with a 2-year-old child, right? The child's not going to see, you're not going to be able to reason with that 2-year-old. So you might as well just give the kid the ice cream cone, you know, or do whatever, you know, I mean, whatever, you have to accept it. And so I'm looking at these people and it's like, and some people say, well, if there's one person you can help, you know. And yeah, and that's why I do this. It's service to others instead of service to self. I'm talking to you, whoever you are. There's nobody there now, but somebody eventually will watch this. Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that.
Really funny. Really funny.
These guys laugh at anything, you know? It's ridiculous.
Okay.
It's like her. But, you know, when's enough is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You know, and things become so repetitive. And I'm almost thinking of, there's a term called body of work, right? Which is actually in my book, a little illustration. Then what? And so maybe it's time that people go and read my 10 books if they want to see my life and where I came from and how I became and how I changed and how I was leaned left, leaned right, then realized both were absurd and didn't even care about it either. And it's the same with my webcasts and stuff like that. And I'll just go back to gardening and live out my life. And hope that I could find content during the free time that I have before I go to sleep. Or maybe I'll read those books. Maybe it's time to read books again. I have some great books that I haven't gotten to. And maybe I have enough books to see me through to the end of my days. You know? Get back into that. I need to get a pair of eyeglasses, though. These things I'm wearing now are just like for this show. They're to read the things on the screen. They're not really reading glasses. They're not good enough. I need to go to an eye doctor and get the prescription glasses to read books. But that's where my head's at, and I don't know. I'm sharing this with you because maybe it's these types of thoughts have come across your mind in a different, vein in whatever your, lot in life is, but we all still have the same basic emotions, feelings, way of approaching things, no matter what we do. It doesn't matter what our profession is, right? So, like I said, this show has nothing to do with coffee. I know some of my title cards are just real classics, I got to admit. Camera 2. It's 5:51 a.m. in the morning. And I'll tell you, by 5:41 this afternoon, I'm going to be up in my attic with like a handheld pump, hoping that no new leaks haven't developed and that I can manage the leakage coming in from my roof. So I'm going to have enough of that to deal with, right? And that's what my day holds ahead. But that's like 12 hours from now, Like I don't even think the range starts. Yeah, it's like the rain doesn't even start until like later, like midday or something like that, or in the afternoon. So it's I got this time to kill. So I'll watch the show. That'll kill an hour and a half. And, and that's that. And I don't know. I'll probably be back maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? I really don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm trying to still figure all this stuff out. 5:42 in the morning. Most people are still sleeping. I'm on the verge of finishing a show.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, folks. Thanks for watching, listening, whatever you've done. Visit ROCKFLUX.com. I'm also on Rumble. These shows are a day late on Rumble. And listen to my beat poetry, like I showed you before. There's like 50. You can listen to it anywhere on Spotify or whatever. But the playlist I have set up on Amazon, on YouTube, will turn you on to, the full library more or less. And then it would be nice if you found a few favorites to add them to your Spotify or Apple Music list. That would be nice. Because then I might get actually 0.2 cents or something like that. Otherwise, that great solar stuff has power backup things. If you're in the Northeast and you order something this morning, a power backup thing, from Amazon, and you have Amazon Prime, you just might get that tomorrow or the next day in time. So when the power goes out, you're covered. Otherwise, you can get my hoodies, shirts, and all that other stuff just to spread the word, and, mementos and share the sayings that I have, and my most recent 2 books, Then What and Codex, are available on Amazon right now. I still stress, get the print versions. A book is a book, is something you hold in your hand. Yes, they're available on Kindle and on Apple Books. However, I've seen them on both, and despite the fact that I've used the proper software on both through the companies, they screwed up. They just screw it up. Those devices aren't really, I don't know. Just get the book, the printed book. Otherwise, yeah, I may talk to you tomorrow, may not. Who knows? We'll see. Take care.